In life, we all encounter obstacles, and those obstacles come in all different shapes, sizes, and forms. The question is, how do we handle those obstacles? Do we attack them head on, or do we allow them to make us quit? Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to motivate and inspire listeners to never give up on themselves, their dreams, or their goals. We will interview successful people from all walks of life as they share their no-quit stories when they had the choice to give up or give in, but they didn't. We thank you for listening, and we hope to be that jolt of positivity as you go for your greatness. Welcome to episode number 239 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is being hungry for success. Our quote of the day comes to us from Arnold Schwarzenegger. Be hungry for success, hungry to make your mark, hungry to be seen and to be heard and to have an effect. And as you move up and become successful, make sure also to be hungry for helping others. Today's episode is sponsored by the good people over at West Fair Communications, who publish the Westchester County Business Journal and the Fairfield County Business Journal. These newspapers do a wonderful job in covering all aspects of the business world within two of the most influential markets in the New York metropolitan area. You can also take advantage of their daily news feeds, which keep track on the companies and thought leaders in these important regions. For more information, take a look at www.westfaironline.com. Trust me, once you start reading, you won't quit. I'm very excited for today's episode, as we have our first WWE superstar joining us today. It would be difficult to not be impressed by Ryback's sheer size and strength, but I feel that his determination and dedication to succeeding in life is even more impressive. Although many people thought he was crazy for leaving professional wrestling and a seven-figure salary, the big guy Ryback made a decision for himself, and he hasn't looked back since. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Ryback, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
So the first question I ask everybody is, are you ready to bring it today?
Absolutely. Everything I do, I bring it. So it's I was born hungry and ready to go.
So the number one objective of our show is to motivate and inspire listeners to never give up. And I was curious if you have either a personal story of perseverance or perhaps a challenging time that tested you and you could have given up or given in, but you didn't.
I have multiple points for myself that in my life, injury has kind of played a big part in my life of having to overcome some obstacles. And 28 years old, it was in the WWE. I finally got called up to my dream job and was part of this group called the Nexus. And we were getting ready to actually have a tag match. We had a tag match, but getting ready to have to possibly win the tag team titles at the upcoming pay-per-view event. But we had a live event in Hawaii where I broke my ankle in 3 places in a freak accident. I continued to wrestle on it, and I broke my leg all the way up to my knee. Surgery did not go well. The doctor actually had botched the entire surgery. I needed 3 surgeries eventually where metal was put into my leg. They had to take all this metal out. He did what they thought was permanent nerve damage, and where I was told by multiple doctors I would never walk normal again, let alone wrestle. And after that, I was able to through just daily rehab and a mindset that I was going to overcome it, I was able to return to the WWE as Ryback and reach all new heights with an ankle that has never been 100% since. Was one situation. The second was me walking out of WWE at 34 years of age, leaving millions of dollars on the table in the prime of my career from an age standpoint and a performance standpoint of where I was at the time. And over multiple things that I've talked about, with creative health, health was a major factor at the time, and over trademarks of my brand Ryback and Feed Me More and the big guy that I created outside of WWE, and them trying to strong arm me into handing it all over. So I walked out from the fame, everything, just walked away. And because something inside of me was telling me I had to get out. And when I left, it was discovered the pain that I was having in my back and shoulder was more than just pain. It was, I needed a 5-disc fusion and a right shoulder replacement. And me just being kind of not 34, I wasn't ready to go out that way, I looked into other options and luckily came across some really, really good a physiotherapist named Andrew Locke. And I've had 14 stem cell procedures. I've regrown all 5 discs in my back. I have 0 back pain after not being able to wake up in the morning and even stand up. I would have to roll out of bed and fall to my knees. And I couldn't lie on the ground to play with my dogs. And it was severe. And my shoulder needed to be completely replaced. I had 0 cartilage left from cortisone eating it away, which was one of the things in WWE that was being given to me to kind of cover up the pain. And my right shoulder now is better than it's been in probably the last 10 years. And I hopefully will be able to resume a career in pro wrestling at some point as I see fit. But those are just 2 examples of that. And that second one, me leaving and betting on myself and starting Feed Me More Nutrition in my podcast, and now having that supplement line has been highly profitable for me starting early this year and growing month after month, hitting record sales, and took a little time and a little bit of patience, but those are 2 examples.
That's awesome. And, one of the things that I thought was fascinating is in your WWE career, you took the mic one night and you talked about your mindset and you talked about the book, The Secret. And I just wanted to ask if you wouldn't mind just briefly touching on that.
Yeah, that was something that WWE did not want me to do. And for me, I was always, the one thing I did not enjoy about that job is you had people and then trying to tell you what to say or what they think your quote unquote character would say. And it is, you can't write for a guy like me, and you can't write for a lot of guys there. And that was something I knew I wanted that my fans, I wanted people to understand how much this book, The Secret, the law of attraction, and at the end of the day, positive thinking, having a positive mental attitude, how much that had played a major role in my life. And I had to fight tooth and nail. One, I had to have a long conversation with Vince McMahon to get that approved. And then after that, I had Triple H trying to tell me that he didn't want me doing it, that I was going to hang myself doing that promo, in which to this day, it's the #1 promo I've ever done from fans. I get messages on almost every day saying, thank you for going out there and telling your story of essentially getting released to WWE at a young age after having the world in my hands before I ever truly made it, and kind of falling into a bit of a, though I use the word depression, it's just where you're down. But I was grinding and busting my ass daily. I just had created some bad habits and was drinking on a daily basis and got caught up with a girl and raising a kid that wasn't mine, and just kind of fell off track for about a year or 2 there of not, where the motivation kind of wasn't what it needed to be. And I came across that book, The Secret, and it really just shifted my mind back into what my mind used to be when I was a kid and all growing up before kind of the adulthood and with the negativity that surrounds us in this world. And so for me, that was something that I was very proud to get done and speak up out there, because having that platform and with that amount of eyes, a worldwide audience, I feel that book to me is a great book for anyone, just especially the introduction into positive thinking. And there's a whole lot more that goes into it outside of just positive thinking, but the principles in that book of just setting your mind to something, and there's the hard work part has to follow, which that book doesn't necessarily touch on the hard work part, but it talks about the mindset. And I think it's a great introduction book for a lot of people in this day and age. I think kids, I think that book is being read by kids in school isn't going to hurt anybody, of teaching kids to dream and to have a positive mental attitude. And that, along with some other books like Grant Cardone's 10X. I tell people 2 books, if you want to figure out a key to life, is read The Secret and read Grant Cardone's 10X, and you'll get the best of both worlds.
It's interesting that you touch on that. Those are 2 of my favorite books. And one of the things that I love that you briefly mentioned is the book The Secret talks about the law of attraction and positive thinking, but it doesn't focus on the concept of taking action. And I think that's where the 10X rule really steps up, because it's all about taking action. So I'm curious to ask you, what got you into the whole mindset, and was it something that was in you prior to, or was it not until you read the book The Secret?
No, so I think from a young age, I was always very positive and I was always very successful in everything that I did at a young age. And I think as I got older and television came into play more, the news, the negativity, AOL and online, the internet came about in my teenage years. I think is that was at the point I started becoming exposed to more negativity, which is now at an all-time high with all the social media and everything for people. And I wasn't as self-aware, but I always read from a young age. My mom has pictures of me sitting in my bedroom, and I used to read more stories and things of that nature, but I always loved to read from a young age. And then as I got older again and I got released, The Secret was the spark to me into reading again, where it just became hungry for knowledge. And it's kind of a never-ending black hole. And I go through multiple audiobooks a week, and I go through physical books still. And once you go down that path and you realize it's like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And it's just, for me, all my life, all my successes come from my mindset, working out every day. I work out 3.5, 4 hours and doing my rehab every day for 3 years, even though I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. I understood, and I have that it's ingrained in me through my mindset that you keep moving, you keep going, you keep trying, you got to have patience and mindset. Like all us human beings, we're not all that much different. We're all physically, and I say that within the context of if you're born with 2 arms, 2 legs, and what we can perceive as a normal brain, we all have a fighting chance. The one thing that separates us is our upbringing and what gets put in our brain. And as we're adults, the brain controls everything. Me working out for 4 hours a day is because of my brain and, in my mindset. So to me, it's the most powerful tool that we have for our existence.
I couldn't agree more. So speaking of podcasts, speaking of audiobooks, and you touched on the 10X rule and The Secret, I was curious if you've read anything recently or something that's come out recently that you'd like to recommend to our listeners.
I think anything by Gary Vaynerchuk is worthwhile. Gary's somebody, and I know Gary's, I've had the privilege of being able to communicate with Gary, and Gary, obviously being a fan of pro wrestling. It's, I like the way Gary Vaynerchuk thinks, and I believe that he's a very straightforward individual. I think one of the things I really learned from him too, and that I constantly kind of push to my audience is be yourself and don't be afraid to be yourself, because as you see in this day and age with everything in the world, people are going to love you and hate you no matter what. That's always, and the hate's always going to be there no matter what. So you may as well be loved for being who you really truly are and be hated for who you truly are. And don't budge for anyone. Don't alter who you are for anyone. Know who you are, be happy. And I love that message from Gary, outside of all the business knowledge that he has and on social media, the value that he provides for free for the majority of people. And for Gary's helped me from my business standpoint without even talking to me all the time. Just from seeing his Instagram posts and different things has helped me with my business tremendously into turning a profit, like I said, in a very quick period of time, when most businesses tend to go out of business within that 3-year period. And so he's somebody I think that is very influential in the audience. He may not be for everyone, but I think if, mindset, business, things of that nature, he's worth a follow or worth checking out audio wise. And then another book I could tell you one, I just came, an author, Robin Sharma, The 5 a.m. Club is a book that I recently, within the last few months, read that made me kick my habits even into a higher gear of talking about the benefits of waking up at 5 a.m. every morning. And I was always somebody, I would work later into the night at times, but I also found that for me, I also would relax for a bit at night too. And there was some dead time in there, which is cool. You need that. But I found as I get busier and my business is growing and I need to even buckle down, because when you have success, you find that you got to get hungrier actually to keep having that success. And like for me, that 5 a.m. club book really, for me, shifted me into a higher gear. I get up at 5 a.m. every morning now, and I make better use of my time by doing so. I get more done by 10 a.m. now than I was doing, before 3 or 4. And because I would kind of spread things out, whereas you get up early, and there's just something very powerful about it that book communicates to you on the importance of getting up at 5 a.m. And it's essentially maximizing your time to the fullest when other people are still asleep, and how there's a very powerful presence to that. And I could say firsthand that there really truly is. So that's another book I would say. I don't want to say too many as far as, but that one was powerful. And I will say one more that helped me for mindset, called The Energy Codes by Sue Morter, who I had a privilege of having on my podcast, Conversation with the Big Guy Ryback. And on just a lot of people from The Secret actually reviewed her book. And it's just on, again, mindset and positive energy. And there's some deeper stuff in there as well. But she really helped me kind of with my mindset further and my approach to things, and that we could, having the I get to mentality over the I have to. That was one of the most powerful things I got from that book, that, I get to wake up today. I get to run my business. I get to work out. I get to go have dinner, or I get to walk my dogs, rather than I have to do this, I have to do that. So
no, that's awesome. And I had the privilege of having Robin on my show. Awesome guy, and an awesome book. And one of the things we digest a little bit on our show is the importance of a morning routine. And just wanted to further ask you if you have a morning routine now that you swear by.
For me, social media is a love-hate relationship, and I think it's the greatest time that we're living in as far as having social media. But I believe that we all have been equipped with weapons of mass distraction, as they're called, where these things are very powerful, addictive devices that are great for business and for me. But for me, and the challenging thing is everything I do constantly, and there's so many social media platforms, and I constantly get emails and questions, and I have to keep my phone at me at all times. And I found too, and I had the privilege of doing a show called Dropping Bombs here in Vegas with Brad Lee, and we got to talking about it, where he said the problem is with social media too, that we're comparing ourselves to the billions of other people rather than using that time to prepare, which causes depression. And there's whole other things. You could have the greatest day in the world, and then you go on your phone and watch, 20, 30, 40, or 1,000 people put their highlights of their day, and realize you're going to feel kind of empty inside. I think that's a major problem with social media. So for me, getting up early, and I got to do a lot of website orders early morning and right before I go to bed every night to keep up with all of that as far as Feed Me More Nutrition goes, because I handle everything on that end still with that. But I do all my social media work first thing in the morning after making my first meal, and get everything done with that, so that for me, that kind of takes the stress of, okay, I made all my posts that I'm going to make for the day. And again, I still do stuff throughout the day on it, but it limits my time on it, where I kind of get the bulk of that out of the way from a business standpoint for that. And then it goes into, I go into my therapy, I do my cold tub, hot tub, I get ready, I have my next meal, I do my rehab at home. I usually go to the gym and do the first part of my workout, come back to my gym, do a second workout, and then finish my rehab after that. And then it's business stuff for the rest of the day, scheduling interviews, doing stuff for Ryback TV on YouTube and whatnot. So I have a formula that I do where I'm going from one thing to the next constantly, but it's getting up early and knocking that social media stuff out for me is the key for me to kind of go on with the rest of my day.
If you had to define yourself, but you could only choose one word, what word would you choose?
Hungry.
I love it. So one of the things that we often talk about is the word accountability. And I wanted to get your perspective on what accountability means to you, or how you personally define accountability.
It's just accountability is I think it's being a responsible human. I think it's letting go of your ego. And we're all human. We all make mistakes. And I think it's things don't always go our way. And sometimes it's our fault. Sometimes it's not. But we're all accountable for our actions. And, for me, my WWE career, the one thing I did not like about pro wrestling is you could be the hardest worker on the planet. You could dedicate yourself to that more than any other human being. You could have the X factor. You could look bigger and better than everybody else. You could do things that nobody else could do. You could be loved by the crowd more than anyone else. And it still doesn't matter because you don't have power at the end of the day, because it's in one other person's hands on what they think about you. And that was the one thing about pro wrestling that I'm truly grateful for, because it lit a fire under my ass more than anything else. That I never want to work for a company like that, because I'm never going to be limited. I want my hard work and my mindset to pay off. And that was one of the major things for me, having the power to walk away from fame and millions of dollars and saying, "F you," right to their face, and walking out and betting on myself and being faced with adversity, problems coming. But I held myself accountable for every decision that I made, because I knew what I believed in, and I was going to go out and create power for myself so that nobody else could ever take that away from me and throw away my hard work from me ever again. And I think it's just, at the end of the day, I think it's letting go of your ego and just knowing that I truly believe that no matter what our circumstances, if we keep the right mindset and believe that everything happens in our lives for our favor and benefit, it's not always easy, but if we can keep that in our head, no matter how bad it is, that whatever happens is for our favor and benefit, that we can overcome pretty much anything. And that the power is within us. Like I said, if we just, whether it's our fault or not, you just take accountability, you make it your fault, and you fix the problem, no matter what, that you'll have a fighting chance no matter what.
You know, I wanted to go back to one thing you said before about social media, and I think it's very true in today's day and age. There's so much negativity out there, but what I use my social media for is to connect with people that are in our No Quit Living tribe. And what I use very often is the mute button, and I can pick who and what I see in essence. And I was curious, you had mentioned Gary Vee, if there's anyone else that you follow that really motivates you or you find inspiring on social media.
So that's one thing I think too, is learning how to use social media, that I find myself trying to unfollow as many people as I can now. And because I think it's like Gary, I get what I need from Gary. And I love Tony Robbins. I love it, like Tony's positive message, everything he does. But I was following quite a few other people who, by, I guess, most people's definition of success, are doing great. But I found that following, and I'm not going to name names on some of them, but they would give me a negative vibe following them, that I didn't feel like they were being genuine at all times. And I didn't connect with them like I did maybe with like a Gary. Gary, I just think is a straight up dude. He doesn't bullshit. He tells it like it is. And I just respect that. And so I find myself unfollowing more people, because I get the information that I need from audiobooks and from those people. Those are the people that are helping me, guide me. And having this information to where now it's just applying myself and doing the labor part of things and grinding and getting healthy, that I have the information that I need, and the people that I think we sometimes can overfollow people that can really pollute our brains, is because, 5 gurus can kind of have a little bit different flavor, where you end up really just being overwhelmed and confused at the end of the day. And so I just say, just pick one or two and kind of limit it to that and whatnot. But I think social media, one of the keys is learning this technology, is using it how you do, is following people that you know and truly do like, and keeping it controlled. Because if you don't, and you find yourself, you fall into that black hole of scrolling and looking around, and it really, research is showing it causes a lot of problems.
Yeah, and I before you had said it, I'd never heard of weapons of massive distraction, and I think it's really important in the sense that, like you said, and to our listeners out there, is there's so much amazing content and so many amazing people that are putting positive messages that can uplift you, and there's so many people that, like you said before, the overabundance of negativity, use that word, or use that button to mute somebody or to unfollow somebody. It doesn't mean that you don't like them or they're a bad person. You're just making that decision. You know what? I want to see more of this type of material on my podcast. I think that's really interesting, and I appreciate you touching on that as well.
Yeah, well, the thing is, though, like I said, we can, and I found myself, no matter how well I'm doing, is what people have to understand is the people that you see that are putting out a good message. A lot of these people have been grinding for 15 to 20 years to get to this point, some longer than that even, where this massive success that they're having did not happen overnight. And I think for some people, the journey, and this is what Gary touches on this, it can become overwhelming for people to, especially people like in the business world. When I first started out, and I had a buddy I had to stop talking to because I wasn't vibing with him anymore. His focus was completely wrong. But if I would have focused on what are the major supplement companies doing, man, they're doing all this. Like, I only have 3 supplements. I'm a loser. I don't have 20 supplements. And if I would start like getting caught up in that world, it would have been very overwhelming. Instead, I had a game plan. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew it was going to take a certain period of time to start making it happen. And it was just having a game plan and executing. And I think that's a major thing we need to focus on, that for people. Don't be so consumed with what everybody else is doing. Like, find that 1 or 2 things that you can get the motivation from, and then don't spend too much time looking for motivation. It comes down to a positive mental attitude, having a game plan. And again, that magic keyword is doing the work, or keywords, I should say.
I love that. We talk about action being so important, and I think so many people think about and talk about the mindset and getting yourself ready and having, like you said, a game plan. But I think the most important piece and the next piece is taking that action. And I think that, unfortunately, especially in social media, it gets downplayed, or it gets forgotten in some people's posts and message.
A lot of people like to read about doing push-ups. They like to read about doing push-ups all day and night. A lot of people don't like to actually do push-ups. So
do you like to do push-ups?
I love it. That's what I said. I was hungry, and I'm working out. I'm in my gym right now, taking a break doing this, but it's like I said, you can read about it all day long. At the end of the day, you gotta execute at some point. And I think sometimes we like to distract ourselves, good or bad. We could even distract ourselves too much in the good way by over consuming content, that motivation and positive stuff, because in our minds, we think we're doing something good for ourselves, but we're actually just distracting ourselves from actually doing the work. So there comes a point where you got to pull the trigger at the end of the day too, and there's a fine line with everyone on that. And only you can decide when it's time to pull the trigger.
So for our listeners who would like to connect with you, whether it's on social media or find out more, not only about your nutrition line, but also your book as well as your podcast, please tell us a little bit about where they can find that.
Yeah, so everything here, feedmemore.com is my website. Feed Me More Nutrition is my all-natural supplement line. We don't use any artificial sweeteners or colors. Everything is sweetened with stevia and monk fruit, and we use more natural ingredients. Our formulas cost 3 to 5 times what the majority of other companies actually put into their supplements, and our profit margins are much smaller. But I believe in these supplements I've been using from before WWE even, and it's putting out quality supplements without any of the harmful ingredients. We're on Amazon and feedmemore.com. And then my podcast, Conversation with the Big Guy Ryback, available on all podcast platforms. I'm now on YouTube. We just passed, I think, 115,000 subscribers in 3.5 months of getting this really going. And we're doing a lot of different content on there, and a lot of workout footage starting next week with the Feed Me More Nutrition and the podcast, and putting motivational stuff on that, along with some funny stuff, some food stuff, and different videos. But Ryback TV is essentially my life on YouTube that we have started on that. And Wake Up, It's Feeding Time, my motivational book, is available on Amazon or the feedmemore.com website as well.
That's awesome. And then the last question I'd like to ask you is if you have some parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners.
Man, it's waking up hungry and with a purpose is a very magical thing. And I've had that where I've had to shut that off here even the last couple of years to get myself healthy and really focus on my health and make that my number one priority. And it took a little bit of time and patience, but if you could figure out your why you wake up every morning, and it will truly help you be hungry. And again, I think sometimes we get caught up that we see everyone and what people's definition of success is. It's at the end of the day, as long as you're happy, that's all that truly matters. And what makes one person happy isn't going to make another person happy. I've always been a very hungry, motivated, driven. I'm very competitive by nature, and I'm trying to learn not to be competitive with other people, but competing truly for myself and my happiness, that what makes me tick and makes me happy. So I think happiness is is the name of the game. And whatever it is that makes you happy, just do that. And it's okay if you're not the richest person in the world, if you're not the whatever, but happiness, that's what we're all striving for at the end of the day.
That's awesome. Well, listen, my man, I truly, truly appreciate it. I love what you shared, and I definitely would recommend our listeners following you, and hopefully that you and I can connect again soon.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure, and thank you again for having me.
Thank you for listening to episode number 239. Ryback is quite an impressive individual, and his drive and dedication is extremely impressive. One thing that he said today, so many different times, was the word mindset, and why it is and has been so important for his success as well as others. Ryback spoke about different books that have helped him, the importance of his positive mindset, and how he tries to utilize social media both for himself and others in a positive and inspirational way. He referenced how it could become a weapon of mass distraction, and I absolutely love that. In his parting words, Ryback said something that really hit me. He said that many people like to talk about doing push-ups, but not a lot of people like to do push-ups. I would like to pose a question to our listeners. What is it that you've spoken about to others, but you haven't done? And how come? I challenge you today and moving forward, instead of focusing on what you say and what you tell both yourself and others, rather focus your time and efforts on that first step and taking action. I would like to end today's episode with a quote from Robert Holden. Stop talking to people about what you will do. Show them instead what you are doing. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.